Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Srini here, and today we are going to look at the continuation of our framework videos. So in the last video, we had seen about properties file component, and we also looked at in the next session about how we can basically uh, remove the main method as such and not use it. Instead of that, we will be using test-ng. So that is what we learned in our last session. We are going to go one step further and we're going to look at our next component in the framework, which is page object model. So that's the component which we are going to look at. That is popularly called as POM, that is page object model design. So there is a lot of confusion amongst the candidates who appear for interview, and the interviewer takes the advantage of such kind of confusion. So they ask the candidate that what is a page object model. So often the candidate answer that it's a framework, or it's a type of framework being used to create a Selenium automation. That's not a right answer. So just clarify your understanding here. So in this particular video, you'll be able to understand what exactly is a page object model, why do we use it, how it is useful. We are going to look at all the different aspects of it. And lastly, but not the least, we are going to look how we can incorporate it as a part of our framework. Yes, as a part of a framework design, we can incorporate page object model. So let's get started. So first part is, what is a page object model? So page object model, is it a framework or something else? So it's not a framework actually. So just to clarify, it's not a framework. So it's a design pattern. This is the answer, and not a framework. So if anyone asks you what is a page object model, don't answer it's a framework. It's a design pattern. Okay. So it's a design pattern and not a framework, because here we are using page object model as one of the way or approach to create a object repository in Selenium. You all might be aware that Selenium does not have any inbuilt object repository. Unlike UFT, Selenium does not have any kind of a object repository of its own, like an automatic kind of a object repository. So it has to find ways of creating object repository, right? So one of the way is to use a page object model design pattern. It's a design pattern. Likewise, there are other object repository ways. So you can look at my video in my Selenium playlist. You will get the answer for the remaining types. One of them is properties file. The next thing is the syntax of a page object model that we are going to look at when we look at the coding part. We will look at what is the syntax of page object model, and just have this understanding that page object model is one of the way. Okay, there are other ways of designing your object repository. So we are going to focus only on page object model as a part of this particular session. There is another terminology called page factory. This is another way to create a design pattern. It's not the same as POM. It's similar, but we will look at that into the next session. So today we are going to focus only on POM. And then lastly, let's look at the coding part. So let's go on to the practical part. So this is the framework which we are enhancing after every session. So we have just created just two placeholder classes here. One is called as a home page and the other is called as a sign up page. Just as an example, I've taken two pages here, and they are extending our base class. So this is what I had explained in my first session, that base class plays a very important role, because all the UI pages are going to reference from base class, because this is going to be your parent class of the entire framework. So you need to have this driver variable here, mention it here, it should be public, so that the other class is public or protected, so that other classes, when they're doing inheritance, be it in the same package or in different package, they would be able to refer to this attribute, right? This instance variable. That's why it's important that you have all of your important necessities inside the base class. So we are going to look at that aspect now. So let's get started, right? So whenever you are working with any particular UI kind of a browser, right? When you are working with the UI test case, what comes to your mind? So let's take an example of this particular website, right? So as soon as I come to this website, I have got this kind of a pop-up. Let me close it. Okay. So you see some elements here, right? These are all elements which is seen on the page. So until you don't interact with these elements, you would not be redirected to some other page, whichever you may want to go to. Let's say you may want to go to this simple form demo. So you have to click on these two elements, first input form, then an element inside this drop down called simple form demo. That is how you got this particular page loaded into the same page. It's like a Ajax call because the content got dynamically loaded, right, at runtime. So this is how you got a new page loaded. If you want to go back to home page, you can just click on this particular button or link. So we are going to look at this particular website for our example. So for that, you need to design a page object model. Means we are going to have locators as a part of each Java file. So what happens in this page object model design pattern is that for every particular page of the application, so this is going to be your home page or what we call a demo home, right? It's going to be your demo home page. Then we have another page called simple form demo. If you click on simple form demo, you are redirected to a simple form demo. If you look at the title, it's a simple form to automate using Selenium. Likewise, you are going to have different pages. So that's why you're going to have different page object model design patterns, or different, for every page we are going to have a separate Java file. So this is going to be separate, this is going to be separate. Likewise, all of them are going to be separate. So let's say, for example, home page. This is the home page. So whatever elements are a part of this home page, I should be having those all locators as a part of my home page Java file. So this is the Java file which is extending your base class. So I have to start creating locators here for this particular home page. So let's look at what are the elements inside this home page. So we have input forms, we have date picker, we have table, etc. So let's look at input forms as an example. So input forms is one of the element which we are going to target in this session. Then what else do we have inside the input form? When you click on it, you are going to get all of these elements. So let's take example of simple form demo. These are all now still a part of this particular page only, because if you see, this element is a part of this drop down. It only when we click on this, we are redirected to some another page. So this particular link is a part of this home page. These two links are a part of this home page. So we are going to look at this simple example here. Now, how do you define the locator? Normally, how do we define the locator? We say driver dot find element by, like this we write, right? Now, this driver variable will be coming from your base class, because in the base class, you have created the driver variable. So this is how we have linked all of our classes with each other. We are having this driver only in one class called base class, and remaining all page Java files are going to extend your base class. Everything, even listener class as well. Everything is going to extend your base class. So this is how we have created our framework, and we have to import it, right? Be it a test case, test scripts. See, test scripts also extends base class. Everywhere we are just going to utilize this base class as a reference, and the driver session is going to be maintained here, right? So what do we need now as a part of home page? So home page, we need to have some kind of a way that I can create the locators. So the way we do it in page object model is we create a element. So we create a by object like this. So you might have seen that, like this was a syntax. Whenever you used to create an element, you used to mention the XPath like this here, and that's it. Your locator is formed. So you can store this into a web element. This is how we used to do it, right? But now, to simplify our approach, we are going to make this by variable. See, by dot is nothing but the by variable. This entire portion, we are going to create certain locators outside. So we are going to skip this kind of approach. Rather, we are going to have the locators created like this. And now you mention what kind of a element do you want to have. So when you say driver.find element by dot, right? So you write this way. So we are not going to write the entire syntax here. Instead, what we will do is we'll just mention this by dot as a part of this instantiation. So let's do one thing. Let's just try to find out what is going to be the value for your input forms. If you are in this website, if I go to home page again, I have to click on this particular form. So I'm going to inspect it, right? So I'm just showing this in a Chrome browser. You can use any browser for your purpose. So here I'm going to again click on this. Yeah, I have got this particular anchor tag being shown. So that indicates it's a hyperlink, right? So how do you form a XPath? You can use by.link text. So I can say by.link text method, and in the double quotes mention the name of your input forms. So this is the name of your input forms. Okay, so it's coming like this. So what we can do is, if you want to ignore the space, you cannot, because it's a hyperlinked text. So better thing would be we can go for XPath. Okay, so we can just say, we can either use anchor tag, or just like this we can say contains. This is one of the way to use a XPath, and I'm going to use the particular text what we had. It's a input forms, right? Okay, so here contains text input form, or so if you just inspect this particular element, you will get the exact XPath input forms. Yeah, I think one bracket was missing here. That's why it's not indicating a valid XPath. Yeah, here we go. So this is a one of the way, and the other way is that, okay, it's showing two ones here. One is this and the other one is this particular one. Let's say instead of this one, if we want an exact match, then how do you do that, right? If you want an exact match, then how do you do it? So you just have to find out which particular location this element is present here. So this element is present below this li drop down. So this is the way we can go for. We can just try to give it exact path where this is present. So this is present below li drop down. And then if you want to just find out this XPath, just try to check here. Just say contains text and give this value. So I have to close this particular bracket here. Now you're getting an exact match. So because if you have given the proper path here, you will be getting an exact match even if it is occurring multiple times. So we are going to, let's say, going to use an XPath here. If it is not a proper value of link text which has spaces or something you want to avoid, rather than giving the entire value, you can give like an XPath also. Now let's similarly give it for the simple form demo page. If you inspect this particular element, this is again an hypertext. Now this does not have extra space, so we can directly go for link text. Here I can mention like this. Okay. So this is what we are having, two objects as an example taken for as a part of this page, but you would have to do it in real time for all the objects. I'm just showing this for the demo. You will have to do it for this, all the elements, this one, everything, even this small images also you'll have to take care of, including as a part of your homepage. Now these are the elements or locator. We need to have some interactions with these elements, right? So we need to have methods. So let's create some methods and let's perform some action. So what would you perform an action on this input forms element? You will click on it, right? So we would say click on input forms link. That's all we need to do. Just perform the actions using the methods for this particular Java file. And now how is that you're going to achieve clicking on it? Because you already have a driver variable from your base class, right? Just assume that your browser is launched, then you are going to use your driver variable which is coming from your base class. So then we just have to use this way. And now driver.find element, which element? This element, already it's created. You just have to click on it. That's how the equation becomes simpler here, because you have got your locators already created. You just have to establish the interaction. And now once you click on this element input forms, what would happen? This drop down will appear, right? And you have to now click on the simple form demo link. So again, the same syntax, again, the same operation, it's click, but for the different element. It's for the simple form demo link. If you click on it and just maybe print the title, that's all about our test case. Let's say you want to print the title. So let's say page title. If you want to distinguish what is the page title before and after, you can always print it, just get the title after and also before. So you can distinguish what happened before and after. Okay, so let's say after pre-completion. What's the page title we want to know? So this is how simpler this has all become, right? This with page object model design approach, you can create your web elements like this using a by method and just create a method to interact with those elements. But now, before we even go to this particular page or the elements, because these are a part of home page, we have to launch the home page also, right? We don't have any methods currently written yet for launching the browser or launching the application. So for that, let's create one method in our base class. Let's say launch browser, right? I'm just showing this for the demo purpose here, how we will be able to achieve it. So we already have a driver variable here. Let's make it static so that I don't have to create the object every time for base class. So I'm going to make this driver as static. Now what we need to first know what type of browser we are going to launch. So for getting a simpler approach here, let's assume we are going with Chrome browser. Later, I will be making this a browser factory kind of a utility, which will be able to select whatever browser user wants and they can accordingly launch it. But for now, just to understand page object model design pattern, we will assume it's Chrome, let's say. So what's required for Chrome, right? For Chrome, you need to have the properties set. So you have to set a property like this. Okay, this is the property which you have to set, but you have to give a path to this particular property, like where exactly is your driver variable going to be present at. So we can first get a link for our current directory where we are currently there, right? So we are currently in this particular directory location, where whichever location this Selenium automation framework project is present. And now we have to navigate the path to go to our config properties file, right? Or which particular path would you give here? For launching the browser, you have to first give the path of your file, which is nothing but your Chrome driver.exe, right? So where is a Chrome driver.exe? It's not a part of your reference library because these are the jar files. So I have put that under resources here. So you have to go here. So is it a part of SRC? No, it's not a part of SRC. It's outside. So we can directly go into resources folder and just say Chrome driver.exe. Okay. So this is how we are going to give a path for our this particular variable. So we have given system.get property, which property? The Chrome WebDriver, and the path is mentioned like this. This is a string, plus we are appending the string value, and finally we are closing this particular system.get property. It will be able to set the property of our Chrome driver. Now we are all set to start using Chrome driver. So let's say driver equal to new Chrome driver. Okay, this is how we instantiate the Chrome driver. We have already declared the driver variable here. Now what else is required? You will have to launch your application. So driver.get method is the method to launch your application. Either you can hard code, but that's not a recommended practice. So I would recommend you all have this as a part of your constants file or as a part of your properties file. So I have currently created a variable called application URL. So I can just simply go to its home and give this URL. That's all which is required. Just update it here. Don't have any space after the URL. So be careful about that. And now we come back to base class, and now we have to read the property of that properties file. We have seen this as a part of our properties file session, that how do we read the property? We have a method here, right? So what we have to do is simply call this method read property and just pass which particular attribute we want to read. So we want to read application URL here. So this is basically this also, if you don't want to hard code, you can take it from the constants file. This particular name application URL you can take from you can create a constants file here and you can create it as well like this. I'm just going to show you. So this is how you create a constants file. Just say constants. Okay. It doesn't need any main method. Just create a constants file, and here you can store the name of the variables. How? You can just say string final, because the names are not going to change, so it's going to be a constant. So you can say application, right? And just give the name as application URL. So once you give a variable name like this, so that means this value can never change throughout the execution of a program. It's final, right? Because a final keyword is used. So rather than hard coding directly the value, I can just reference it like this. So I can make it as final static. See, it becomes static. So it's italic font is there here, right? Now I can just reference constants dot application. So what I have to do here, go back to my base class. If I don't want to use this way, I can directly refer constants dot. So what's the name of your file? Constants dot application. Just to avoid the confusion, we can just give another name, because this is might be a keyword. That's why there might be a confusion. So better to give some other name. So given constants file here, and yeah, now it should be fine. When I use a dot operator, see, I should be able to read the proper value. So I have to make this particular variable as static. So constants file dot static should be the name. So let me give this particular one. So this is the variable which we are going to refer from constants file. Just make it public so that when you're trying to access outside this particular package base framework, in any of the other packages, it should be referenceable. So I'm going to start accessing it. See, I'm able to access the static property, which is application here. And that's all about it. So you just have to get the value of this particular variable. What's the value of this constants file dot application? It's going to be application URL. So that's the property you want to read from your properties file. So that's what I've done here. I've not hard coded anything here. So once this is done, your browser is launched, and you just want to ensure the browser is maximized. So we have an option here. So you can refer to my initial tutorials on Selenium to understand this more. And there is a way we set up timeouts as well. So give some timeout period. So given some timeout here, and similarly for the page load timeout as well. Let's say 20 seconds maximum it will wait, and then it will time out. So these are the common handling things which we need to take care. And that's all about it. We are having this browser launched. So this should be like a prerequisite before we run our test case, right? Means before we launch a test case method, we should be taking care of calling this particular method, which is launch browser, for launching the browser as per our test case. So let's go to test scripts now. And here, let's create a testng method. We had created one method for reading a properties file. We need just one more method now for doing a simple page object model test, right? So let me say in test method on test. Yeah, so this is a prerequisite, initialize prop. So if you don't want to every time do this, I would recommend just take it out from here as well. We don't want it to be a part of every method call. Just ensure it's a part of your before suit or before test. So I can put it in before suit. So I can, yeah, just put it like this here. See, that's all. Because it's a static method, I don't have to use base class dot or anything like that. I just have to call it, and it will initialize your properties file. See here, it is going to establish a connection to the properties file and ensure that we don't get any null pointer exception. So property, this prop particular variable will have a value, and we can use it for our getting property of the property file by using read property method. So that's why after this, once we have instantiated, I can anytime use this read property call to get the property value. So I hope this would be clear to you all. So I'm just going to go to the test scripts. I have already taken care in the prerequisite for launching the I mean, just have the connection of properties file. Now let's go to the test case. Here it is. Yeah. So this is fine. I don't need this again. Now I want to start my test case execution. So for that, first of all, I have to call the launch particular browser test case, because the test case will start by launching the browser. So I'm going to start by making a call here. Again, if you don't want to create object, make it static. So static void launch browser. So let's go to this one, and I just want to do the execution here like this. So I'm going to launch the browser. After that, what else I have to do? I have to click on something. So that particular something is going to be in a part of your home page, right? We have already declared the objects here, and we have also created a method to interact with these elements, right? So what we are going to do, we are going to click on this particular, or just call this particular method, so that it's able to instantiate or use these objects and start doing the execution as we want. Okay, so what we will do is we will just go to this test scripts here and call this particular method. So it's not able to get this. Why? Because it's not a part of your base class, right? This is a part of your home page. So we have to access this particular through a method call like this. So it's a part of your home page. You're going to access it through your home page object, and then you will be able to execute it. Now I'm just going to make this first particular method as enabled as false, because I don't want to simply execute this. So it's going to execute only this particular method, and let's see what happens, right? So let's launch the browser first and click on the input forms link. So I'm going to run my test case. So if I go to my testng.xml file, or here as well, I can run it. So I'm going to run it from here only. Let's run it from here. Okay, so it's given some exception. Let's look at that. So it's saying that webdriver.chrome.driver. So I think there might be some typo error here, which we may have just written the syntax. Let's have a look. Okay, I think it's just jumbled a bit. Webdriver.chrome.driver. This is the property which we should be using. And now let's try to launch it. Okay, so it's getting failed. Let's look at the failure. We should not be disturbed with failure. So here, webdriver.com.driver, I've already set it up. What's the issue? Let me check. We have to terminate the sessions. Just a minute. Okay, so what we will do is we'll just have a look if something is wrong here. So I have set the property of webdriver.chrome.driver, and system.getProperty is giving the right path. So just ensure that this entire syntax is correct. Otherwise, it will not be able to launch your Chrome driver. So let's go ahead and try it again. So I'm going to run the test case here. So I've just set the property, and let's run the test case. Let's see what happens. So this time it's launching the browser. Okay, so it's a case now that we have got a pop-up. We did not expect this pop-up to be obtained. So we have to handle this pop-up before we even go and try to do something in the application. So we have to click on either yes please or no thanks or this close symbol. So let's go and try to handle this by, let's say, adding this object. So what I can do is I can go to my home page wherever I've written the code here. So I've called this particular method call, right? I've called this method call here. So before I try to interact any elements, I will just try to click on something which will make that window closed. So let's say driver dot find element by dot xpath. What's the xpath here? Now we have to find out the xpath of either of these elements. So let's say no thanks is the element we want to interact with. So it's a hyperlink, or we can go for the anchor tag also. So I can go for the anchor tag. No thanks. So I can say by dot link text, right, and mention the value here. So this is one, and I have to click on it. So this is the way I can just try to handle this particular exception. Now, if this would have been a part of a window or a frame, let's say if this particular thing would have been a part of a window or a particular frame, we will have to switch to the window or to the frame and then interact. But this is like a simple pop-up. So if I go to the top and if I see there is no frame mentioned here, so it's not a part of any frame, this particular element. So I'm fine to directly interact. Neither it's a part of any kind of a pop-up window or something. So I don't have to worry about switching to a window or switching to a frame, etc. I can directly interact. So I've just used this link text, and let me rerun this program again and let's see. So it will maximize, and then let's see. Yeah, it's able to do it now. And we have come to our page, which is the input forms click and then simple form demo page. So if you look at the title here, it says simple form to automate using Selenium. So we have completed our simple test and it's completely passed. If you see here, it's passed. So this was a page title initially when we came, and this is a page title for simple form demo once we have clicked on it. So this is how we can use a page object model to uh, use it in our automation framework. And yeah, that's all about it, which I wanted to show. We will be enhancing this page object model more in future, but this was just like an introduction and how this page object model can be a part of your framework. So we have to write certain locators and methods to interact with the elements, right? So these are the locators and these are the methods which we are going to use to interact. And your testng method has to tell you a proper sequence of how the execution has to happen. See, here this prerequisite was clear, and that's the reason we had mentioned that as a part of our before suit, that we have to make sure that this property file is initialized, the config properties file. And then we just had to launch the browser and execute the test case. So that's all about it. I hope you like today's session. Thank you so much. And do subscribe to my channel if you haven't done yet. Thank you.